Good afternoon, Eagles fans, and welcome to another weekly episode of the Flock Talk Show hosted by Marton, myself, and of course, joining me alongside is Charlie Black as we're outside the South Surrey Arena right now as the Surrey Eagles are getting set for another week of games inside the Burnaby Pod, presented by Shaw. But before we kind of get into what happened this past week and everything related to the BCHL in 2021, Charlie, why don't you explain to Eagles fans why we're wearing these special Eagles jerseys?
As we film this, it's Tuesday, April 6th, and it's the third anniversary of the Humboldt Broncos bus crash. Their bus crashed on the way to a playoff game in Nipawin, Saskatchewan. 16 passed away in the accident, including a Surrey Eagles alum, Jackson Joseph. Not just this day every year, but every time we hit the ice, we remember them and we play for them. The players, the coaches, the trainers, the broadcasters, everyone affected. It's the hockey community is truly one united community, and we remember every single day that all of this, everything we play for, can be gone in an instant.
Yeah, and so it's tough to kind of find the words to, express how we felt the day of and how we feel right now. All we can do is offer our thoughts, best wishes, and prayers to everybody associated with the Humboldt Broncos, the players, the families of the players, the staff, the broadcasters, the trainers, the coaches, everybody involved. We just want to send our best wishes and hope you are all staying strong on a very tough day indeed. We're going to kind of change it up and go into what happened with the Eagles on opening weekend in the 2021 pod season presented by Shaw. And the Eagles 1-1 through 2 games, just like the rest of their pod. It started out real good for them on opening night in the BCHL. A 5-1 victory over the Coquitlam Express, Charlie, in a game in which every player had kind of been looking forward to for the past 7 months, and Surrey really showed what they're capable of.
The fun fact about that game, the first game of the schedule was supposed to take place in the Chilliwack pod, but because of bus troubles, Merritt wasn't able to get to the game in time, meaning that when Buddy Johnson scored the first goal of the game in Scotiabarn, that was in fact the first goal of the BCHL pod season. And the Eagles did not let up from there. A big game out of Jacob Slipik, who had to wear jersey number 3 instead of his typical 13 that game. I asked him if he was going to go back. He said he might have to think about keeping the 3.
Well, he had a great goal, which ended up being the game winner. Other players to make mention of, you had Buddy Johnson who had a goal and an assist. You had Christian Fitzgerald find his way onto the score sheet. Michael Abgral as well, a goal and an assist. So a lot of spread out scoring for the Eagles in that 5-1 victory. Tommy Scarfoni was great in that one, only giving up the 1 goal against. But then Sunday happened, and I think the Eagles kind of got a little lackadaisical going up against a Powell River team that had not played any exhibition games at all. But Powell River, after a loss on Saturday against Coquitlam, kind of came out and put the Eagles in a spot where they weren't too familiar with, running away with a 5-2 win.
Well, let's go back to what we talked about last episode. Powell River is the ultimate wild card. We didn't know what they were capable of, and wouldn't you know it, Josh Kagan comes out firing. Nolan Krogfoss comes out firing. That loss against Coquitlam was a 7-6 loss. They still generated a lot of offense, and that carried forward into the Sunday game against the Surrey Eagles, where Brandon Toy with 2 goals, Owen Barrow with 2 assists, Josh Kagan 2 goals, including the empty netter for insurance. It was a big performance, and Thomas Wardle, this is just his world, and we're living in it.
Well, it was a huge game for Powell River in the sense of really putting Surrey in their place. There's a lot of talk about how strong of a team Surrey was coming into this pod season, and, I'm one of the pundits that had Surrey up on top of the pod, and while I might still have that belief, it was great to see Powell River give it to them, in a sense that, Cam talked about it after the game, that the Eagles were not ready to play in that game 2 against Powell River, and, I can hear the whistles in the background, and I am sure that Cam will have this team prepared and ready to go on Wednesday. But, we talked about what happened with the Eagles score-wise. The player of the week that we have kind of talked about, we're going to introduce every week on the Flock Talk Show, and it was a close decision here between you and I. We had to talk about it for a couple minutes.
Lots of debate.
But we decided, we're going to choose, it's number 4, Jimmy Darby, 2 points in 2 games, was not on the ice for an even strength goal against an opening weekend. And, Darby doesn't have the NCAA Div 1 scholarship yet, but it was a good start for him here in the pod season.
You got to think this is going to get a lot of scouts on him. I've had people come up to me in South Surrey Arena talk about, that Darby kid is unreal. He reminds me of a young Bob Rouse. And I just think we're starting to see a lot of that come alive right now. Darby is responsible in his own end. He's got the good pass to jump up into the fray of things. He's involved with the offense. He's sturdy. He's exactly what you need, especially in that Sunday game where on the right side he was the more senior defenseman.
Well, he is the only senior defenseman from last season on this team, and he's only one of two on the right side that have BCHL experience, the other being Ian Kern, who did not have the debut I think he wanted against his former team. But Darby playing in all situations. He is on the power play unit with Holden Katzele on that unit, as Cam has 3 units that he kind of likes to turn to, and then he's also a key component on the penalty kill. We'd like to see that sorted out as the season goes on, but with all of the time waiting and developing skills, I think special teams will be something that is worked on now that we are kind of getting underway. Now, that's kind of our player of the week. We're going to go around the BCHL. Charlie, talk about what's going on in some of the other pods.
Let's go to start off in Penticton, where the host Vs are 2-0 to begin. But the big story coming out right now from that Penticton pod is, of course, the Cranbrook Bucks playing in their first regular season games as a team. They got their first win in a big way with an early Save the Year candidate coming off the goal paddle of Jay Thompson, who absolutely robs the Trail offense to keep that game within reach. And Cranbrook, they buckled down, got the rest of the way there. They got that first win as a franchise, and you got to think they're going to carry some momentum. It's going to be tough as they and Trail are going up against a V's team that is never asleep at the wheel.
No, and Penticton's always going to look good, so congratulations to the Cranbrook Bucks. That's always great to hear, and that battle between Trail up in the Kootenays, that's going to be a fun one to watch for seasons to come. Over on the island, the Nanaimo Clippers and the Victoria Grizzlies both sit atop the standings, 2 wins apiece. However, Victoria does have a loss on their record as well. Alberni Valley right now has 3 points, 1-1-1, but then Cowichan Valley is still searching for their first win in the pod season as well. They are 0-1-1. And then, the big story out of the island, Ellis Rickwood, first game as a Grizzly, 4 goals. He's got 5 goals in 2 games so far.
6 goals.
6 goals. Wow, okay.
He's putting together a Cy Young season. 6 goals, 0 assists. That's a pretty nice looking number.
That's a pretty nice number. Another pod that kind of talk about the Chilliwack Chiefs, who are normally one of the top teams in the BCHL normally. They are 2-0 in their pod right now against Prince George and Merritt. Merritt 0-2, Prince George is 1-1. And then the Vernon Vipers, the other pod host, they're also 2-0 right now. West Kelowna is 1-1, Salmon Arm is 0-2. That is your Around the Pod update through the opening weekend of the BCHL pod season presented by Shaw. Charlie, any surprises?
I don't think there's a ton of surprises. We're looking at a lot of the host teams are quite strong going into it. I think the thing I'm amazed about the most, and not really amazed, that's really the wrong word. I'm looking at the island and how much offense they are generating. It is a snipe show over in the Weyerhaeuser Arena, and that's some fun hockey to watch. You get a glimpse of it here in the Coquitlam pod with that 7-6 game with Coquitlam versus Powell River, and that's just every day it feels like over in the island. It is crazy over there. It reminds me of the 2012 playoff series between the Philadelphia Flyers and the Pittsburgh Penguins, where the goalies kind of just took a back seat and said, you guys do what you need to do.
Well, right now, we're talking about scoring. I wouldn't expect the Eagles to be lowest in goals for in their pod after 2 games, but here we are. It's the world that we're living in 2021. We're going to talk about what's coming up next for Surrey. They've got 4 games on tap next week. There will be a lot for you and I to kind of recap, but it all starts Wednesday with a rematch against the Powell River Kings. The Eagles are going to look for a little bit of revenge. You have to think that Tommy Scarfoni is going to get the crease for that one inside the Scotia Bar, and that one is a 7:30 start time, Pacific time. You can watch that game on BCHL TV, powered by Hockey TV, and Mixler.com/Eagles BCHL. Charlie, before I close this one off, you have any final remarks here on the Eagles schedule ahead?
We're looking at goaltending. This is going to be the major story of the Coquitlam pod. I think when you look at Scarfoni and Dylan Kruss and Thomas Wardle, these guys are all going to be keeping things very locked down. I'm looking forward to a lot of big saves out of Scarfoni, and when you look at the goaltending depth that we're dealing with, Thomas Wardle, I think he's going to start a lot of games for Powell River. I picture he's probably in the realm of 14 starts at the very least. It's his crease, and he's going to be a major player. Coquitlam was so deep last year in net, they had to move on from Thomas Wardle. And speaking of Coquitlam's goaltending, they weren't going into this expecting Dylan Kruss to be their guy. They had Jack Watson last year, they had Joe Howe last year. They have neither of those gentlemen for the pod games, but I think they like what they see in Kruss, and It's going to be a dogfight. I am thrilled to be here. I'm excited for what's ahead. All I can say is, let's go.
Well, let's go indeed. You can catch all of these great goaltenders in the BCHL Burnaby pod, or the Coquitlam pod that's being played in Burnaby. However you want to phrase that. Again, it gets all started.
Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
Exactly. Wednesday, 7:30, you can join me on the broadcast. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. One last time, we want to wish all the families in Humboldt and all the players' families that were affected, we want to wish them all the best on this tough day. And to Eagles fans, I'm looking forward to catching you on the broadcast. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day.
Humboldt strong.